Welcome to the Seikird Healing Podcast, where the old is new, the ancient is innovative, and the forgotten is remembered. We believe that sacred healing is your birthright. Join us on each episode as we uniquely, authentically, and mystically dive into the bold and vulnerable life of many magical humans. From breath, spirituality, shadow work, and all things in the esoteric realm of healing, we don't leave any stone unturned on this bold journey of growth as we start to explore the remembrance of what it means to be human. So take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and let's get sacred. Hello, sacred humans. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I am chatting with the gorgeous being known as Summer Valentino. She is a breath worker. She is an artist. She is a painter. She's a poet. She's a mom. And she is a beautiful, beautiful soul who's experienced some of the deepest shadowy muck and who's also been able to bring herself out of that into beautiful moments of bliss and joy and creating in the world. And I cannot wait for you guys to see her heart because she shared her heart with me. We've become really beautiful friends over the past couple years, and I cannot wait for you guys to see this soul just breathing life into the world. She is magnificent. She is just stunningly herself. She's so authentic and so unique. And I love so many things about her. But without further ado, please enjoy this episode with Summer Valentino. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Seikird Healing Podcast. Today, I am really, really pumped because I have my really good friend Summer here with me. And I cannot say enough about this person. We became really close over the past year, but we met 2 years ago, I believe. And we've just really gone through some really deep spiritual experiences together and also some really tough times. And we've had really deep conversations. And she's somebody that I can turn to when I'm feeling like I'm going through some sort of a shadow, or she's somebody I can turn to when I'm really excited about something and really pumped to talk about something. So she's just an overall beautiful being, and I'm really, really excited to chat with her today. So Summer, it's so good to have you, and I wish we were here in person, but alas, here we are, and you've got your candle and you've got all the ambiance. So welcome.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here and to see you in person. I know it's not in person, but like just to see your face and have this conversation with you. I am super grateful to be here.
Oh, I am too. I'm really happy that we're finally doing this. We've been talking about getting together for a little bit here. So this is really exciting. So I want to set the stage for kind of before we get to kind of like your awakening, if you will, or what kind of flipped for you in order to go down a different path. I want to set the stage of like, who is Summer? Where are you from? How did you grow up? And what got you to a point where you had to make a shift in your life?
Yeah. So my little story about how I came to be at this point of 36 years old. I have moved around my entire life. My dad worked in the hotel industry, like renovating hotels. And so we moved around every couple of years. I went to a lot of different schools. That, of course, like allowed me to meet new people, live in different cultures, environments, and really be able to like mold to like the new place that I was going to. So I feel like it was a really unique childhood, being raised. And And now I'm currently living in Southern California. I have 3 beautiful little kids and, just going through the motions. I have a couple businesses on the side that I do e-commerce stuff for. I am now in the healing space doing breath work, facilitating, and yeah, I'm just high on life.
I love high on life. And it's funny because, and we'll dive into breath work as it's kind of a healing modality because that's really close to both of us. But we ended up getting a little bit like deeper into our relationship. And then we didn't even realize that we were both trained in breath work. And so then we started to go down that path because you were trained in awaken breath work with Lucas and Hella. And I was trained in somatic with Stephen Jaggers, but they're both very, very similar modalities. And so we started to connect on that level too, which I want to dive into, but we'll pin that for later. And I think just in terms of what you mentioned with your childhood and kind of having to adapt, I want to kind of tell me more about that. Like tell me more about that adaptation and then how you got to the point where you're in a marriage and you're having children, and then what happened? What changed? What shifted for you?
Yeah. I look back now on my childhood and I am so grateful for being able to experience all those things. But during it, as I'm growing up, it was really difficult being jumped from one place to another, having to dive into a new school environment. There was many times that I would sit and eat my lunch in the bathroom stalls because I was a very shy kid, but I'm also I would say that I used to think that I was very extroverted. But I think that was my coping mechanism for like being thrown into these different situations. And I developed this part of myself that I love and I've grown to love. But when I was a kid, it was almost like I was too loud or too excited about certain things. But that was because I had to make friends really quickly. And so I had to like throw myself into this like very extroverted role as a kid. And it became this like way that I coped and made friends and really like got into a group of people, and it helped me a lot. But I think as I grew up, I just realized that I'm a lot more introverted than I thought I was. And yeah, I think that happened with my childhood was a good thing for sure. It made me who I am today for sure. When I got married, I got married pretty young. We were 25. Love of my life. Still probably the love of my life. And we're not married anymore at the moment. So, and then I started having kids and I feel like I lost a lot of myself. I lost a lot of the excitement that I used to have as a kid. I lost a lot of I don't know, just when you have kids, it's like your whole world changes. It becomes your primary focus. And being in a marriage is really, really fucking hard. And sorry if I'm not allowed to swear on here, but
please swear all you want.
Okay. It's really fucking hard to be in a marriage and to go through that process with someone else, bringing kids into this world. and both really at the beginning not knowing how to do that and not how to handle certain situations because we were so young, we were still growing up. And I think we both just lost ourselves a lot, like lost our individuality, lost our joy for doing things that we used to love. Like my ex was very into sports and played baseball like all of his life, and then he kind of got out of that because he got hurt. And for me, like I lost a lot of the things that made me me, which was like painting, and I wanted to go to med school. And when I got pregnant with my daughter, I didn't move forward with that path, which looking back now, I'm glad that I didn't go that way. I would have lost a lot of time with my family, and my life would not be where it is right now if I did go that path. But you lose yourself a lot. And when you're stuck in this like day-to-day grind with three different personalities that you have to raise, along with, you know, another person that's supposed to be your partner, and you're not on the same page with certain things, it really threw a lot of turmoil into our lives. And it made me feel like the best decision to move forward was to go separate ways and raise our kids in happy, healthy environments. Little did I know that decision, I don't think was something that I was ready for. I filed for a divorce. We ended up going our separate ways. I moved into my own home, and I thought it was going to be like just this immediate joy that came into my life once that relationship was done. Now, flashback to all my previous relationships, I had always ran from them. Always. Every single relationship I was in, the second that it got hard, I was gone. It was like I couldn't manage the work that it needed to get back to where it should have been. And so I ran and I cut people out of my life really quickly. And that's what I did in my marriage. And while I thought that this was going to be this very happy, like new life that I was starting on my own, and I was going to be a better mom, I was going to be more present, I was going to be more happy because we weren't fighting all the time and all this stuff. It didn't feel that way at all. I went into a very severe depression, and I was grieving not only in my family unit, but I was grieving this relationship that I don't necessarily feel like I was ready to move on from, because I don't feel like I actually tried. It was like my same pattern of doing this, leaving when it gets hard, type of pattern.
Yeah, and when you and I connected about your relationship and almost, and I don't want to throw words out there, but it seemed like you had a postpartum journey, and then you also had this like breaking of the family unit journey, which maybe we're kind of stacking and layering on top of each other. Because I do remember when we talked about your relationship, just because we're close and we talk about the deepness there. You mentioned you felt like you were a zombie. You were not in yourself, like in your body. And going through that journey of not only postpartum, but now like, oh man, I just really blew up my life from a family unit perspective. Divorce and that deep grieving process, it feels like that just started to layer and layer and layer without being like unpacked. So like that sadness just started to like weave, and then you start, like you mentioned, questioning that decision, like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Was that the right thing? Even though it was so hard, you know?
Yeah, I think I had postpartum for every one of my children. And they say that it's supposed to last 6 months to a year from what the doctors have told me, but mine lasted far longer into like having my next child and my next child. I don't think I ever actually got rid of the postpartum at all. And then maybe it just turned into like a chronic depression. But along with 5 miscarriages that I had during my process of, being married and getting pregnant and grieving those losses as well. And then grieving the loss of myself because there was days, weeks, that I didn't shower and I couldn't take care of myself because I was so in this sad state. And during that time, I abused alcohol a lot. I abused prescription medication a lot. I didn't really know how to cope with my emotions. And I would talk to doctor after doctor about it, and no one seemed to be able to help me. And
I think too, I want to double click on that because I think that a lot of people feel that. A lot of people are in that place or in those cycles where they're like, this is never going to end. This is like, they're in this deep sadness and they're like, well, I'm just going to drink because it makes me feel really good. And that's the only way I can get out of feeling this feeling, or to numb, right? Like all the different ways that we used to numb ourselves, Netflix and chill, or alcohol or medications or whatever it is to not deal with those emotions. And to kind of disconnect yourself from those emotions and say, you know what, I'm just going to keep going, keep trudging through life. Hello, sacred humans. Quickly, I want to share with you something I've added into my daily rituals that has me buzzing, and that is Rise Mushroom Coffee. Rise entered my life through my Instagram algorithm that obviously knows what products I like, and I gave it a try, and just wow, it has amazingly delicious flavor. Not only this, they also have a mushroom matcha powder. Mind blown. And they're filled with superfoods and super mushrooms. What I like about Rise is that they use 100% organic ingredients, and their mushroom farms are located in California. If you've always wanted to try mushroom coffee but haven't yet pulled the trigger, this is your moment. And there is zero risk because they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're interested in the deliciousness of Rise mushroom elixirs, head to the show notes and you will find a link for 20% off your first order. Or simply use the discount code Jessica, all caps, at checkout. That's JESSICA, all caps, at checkout. And now, let's get back to our amazing episode of the Seikird Healing Podcast. There was a moment for you, though, that changed all that, and where you were able to like pull yourself out of that state. And I think it's really important that we talk about the low lows, because what you've been able to do since that time is just like a complete beautiful transformation that I've been able to witness. I wasn't in your life during that time. So what I've witnessed is just this like unraveling of layers and layers and years of like compact trauma. And we've gone on a journey of, and my trauma too, and your trauma, but we've gone on a journey of like really holding each other through healing some of that. And so I think it's really important for everyone to hear that you were at that state that was really fucking low. Like, and a lot of people are there now too,
I think
post COVID, it's like
Yeah.
people were locked in their houses. There's a lot of women that are dealing with postpartum depression. There's a lot of people dealing with depression from their marriages, maybe not working or divorce or grieving that. And so thank you for talking about this, because it's so important. I appreciate that.
I mean, I think I didn't realize at the time, but when I left the marriage, this kind of started it all. I felt like it was going to change my life for the better. I felt like it was the right decision. And I was grieving all of these things. And I went into a full-blown major depression after I left, because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And there was a point after I left that I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't think that I would be able to survive all of the pain that I was feeling about the decisions that I had made, the choices that I had made. And doctors weren't able to help me. So I was still on all these medications at the time. I was on antidepressants and all this stuff, and I was taking Xanax on a regular basis. But then one day I was like, I couldn't face my own decisions. I couldn't face the pain that I was causing myself and my family. And I took, the rest of my bottle of medication of Xanax, and I drank a couple bottles of wine, and with the intention of not waking up. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know how my body woke up that next day. But that morning before I woke up, I heard, it's like giving me chills just thinking about it. I heard someone say in my ear, "Summer, wake up." And I woke up right in that moment. And I don't know what it was, if it was God or spirit or someone that I had lost in my past, a family member, but I heard it so clearly. And I woke up, immediately drove myself to the emergency room. And obviously I was taken in as I don't even know what they call it, a flight risk or whatever, and put into a behavioral medical center. And I'm glad I made that decision, because I was at such a low in that point that I couldn't help myself. But what I realized when I got into the center was not only that I was isolated from my family and friends, because we got like one call a day, but they put me on all of these medications. I think I was on 6 or 7 at one point, a lot of antipsychosis medications, a lot of benzodiazepines. I mean, like, it was, when I did talk to my family while I was there, they said that I sounded like I was not in my body. Like it was someone else speaking on the phone. I was not fully there, and they treated me like an animal. We weren't able to eat with forks or knives because of the danger that it could cause. I remember just eating with my hands like spaghetti and thinking like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how is this happening in a medical facility? And then
we haven't talked about that before, and I didn't know that detail.
And even on this subject of like mistreatment, we were only allowed to shower specific times of day. If you weren't in that room, you weren't able to shower for the next day. We couldn't keep toothbrushes in the room because they thought you were going to make some device out of it and like kill yourself or hurt someone else and whatever. I had a roommate that was like stealing my stuff when I was there, like stealing my food and stealing my like toothpaste and stuff. And the nurses, they like mocked everyone. I mean, there was some people in there with severe mental disorders, schizophrenia, Tourette's, uh, a lot of bipolar people that were not sane. A lot of people off the streets would come in just to like get a kick of medicine and then go back out. So I was surrounded by all these different people that were being treated like animals, and the nurses would stand in the hallways and just laugh at people and mock people. And you know, there was a guy that had like severe schizophrenia and would scream at night and say all of these things that were obviously not of right. He was not in his right mind, and they would just laugh at him and like literally reenact his noises that he was making and like laugh right outside my door. And then the doctor would come in, and every new person that would join the facility, he'd go to their door and say the same thing. You're never going to get off this medication. You're going to be on this medication for life. You have these disorders. He diagnosed me with panic disorder and major depressive disorder. And he's like, you're going to be on this for the rest of your life. The next day, a 16-year-old comes in. He goes to her door. And meanwhile, all the doors have to be kept open. I hear him go to the door, say the same spiel to her. You are never going to get off these medications. This is going to be the rest of your life. And yeah, I just, what
Even
I
just
witnessed.
hearing that same speech, it's like you were right-minded enough to be like, that's a little off, right?
Yeah.
And what is really kind of alarming for me is that you went from one set of medications for like antidepressant, Xanax, things that you were taking in your life that may have made you suicidal or put you in that state. And then you're in this facility and you're on a whole slew of other medications, medications that, you know, at one point you were taking the whole bottle to put yourself out. And now you're getting prescribed all these other things. And it's actually unfortunate, but I have many friends who have a similar story to yours, where they're like, oh yeah, I was put in a facility and I was made to take these meds. And unfortunately, what we're doing to our society is getting all of our young people addicted to different types of medications to numb the feeling of sadness or grief or whatever that feeling is that they're going through. And we're essentially suppressing all the expression of that sadness or anger or whatever it might be, joy even, because those medications do suppress many emotions. And we're not letting those come out and express themselves through the body. And so they just stay inside of us. And so it just hurts my heart to hear that were in that position where you went from one set of medications to another set of medications when it should have been like getting help for that to wean off of those. And then on top of that, being treated like non-humane. I didn't realize that you weren't able to eat with silverware. We hadn't talked about that before. But how horrible, like, I mean, how horrible and how, what an odd way to treat the mental crisis that's going on in our world right now, and in our country right now.
Right. The solution is fix you with more medication than you were already on before. That was clearly contributing to the suicidal patterns and thoughts and sadness and addiction and everything that I was going through. Let's just fix it with more of these medications that you can never get off of. So after that experience, actually, like when I was in there, I remember talking on the phone to someone, I think it was my mom or something, telling them how they were treating people. And that night I was coming out of my room And the nurse was like, because I had this phone conversation with her, and I was saying, the way that they treat the patients here is just so mean. It's like, it's brutal. It's like we are not of equals. We are animals. And that night I was walking out of my room, and one of the nurse goes, "Oh my God, we are so mean." And she's like mocking like my conversation that was happening on a phone that another nurse must have overheard and then shared with her, because your calls are monitored. So you have to like stand there with someone standing there next to you, like monitoring your calls. But that whole experience was so eye-opening for me that I was determined. I was like, when I get out, like I'm going to wean off of the medication. Like, obviously you can't just cold turkey stop this type of medication. You could die, you could have seizures, there's so many medications that literally could kill you if you just stop cold turkey. And I was on.
You were on how many medications did they put you on?
About 6 or 7. And 3 of them, I think, were antipsychosis medications. One of them was for sleep. One of them was for anxiety. One of them was for depression. I mean, it was like a full-blown slew of these medications, and I was determined to get off of them. And I had never felt so much determination to get off. And I think looking back at that time, I was like, gosh, I have to open my mouth about what's happening in these facilities, because this is happening every day and we don't have control of it. And the way that people are being treated in there. It was really eye-opening for me. So my mother came in town after my stay in there, and she helped me, take care of my kids afterwards, help me take my medication, and and just cooked meals for me. And she was just there so that I could work on stuff. And
during this time, your kids were with your ex.
Yeah, they were with my ex. Yeah. And so obviously I knew that they were safe and well, and it allowed me space to figure out what I was going to do next. And that goal of mine was to get off the medications. And
I mean, I'm actually thinking to a meme I saw the other day, and it was like a Kristen Bell meme, and it was, or a GIF or whatever those things are called. And essentially it was saying, like every mom's dream. And the meme was something, or GIF was something along the lines of like, I wish I could just like get into a car accident, not one that makes me die, but a car accident so that I can go and sit on a hospital bed and just like eat the Jello and like just not have any responsibility of being a mom. And it was like every mom ever, saying this. And so to me, it's like, we're not taking care of our mothers. Yes. In this society. Like that's like an overarching theme, right?
Because I am like mind blown that you said that, because I've actually done a reel. So like a lot of like my way of expressing now is through laughter and like humorous things, especially when it comes to parenting. And I did a reel on that one exactly because we are not taking care of our fucking mothers. And I think that is where a lot of the sadness in my marriage came about, because I was with someone who didn't understand what panic attacks were, didn't understand what postpartum was, what depression was. And so that needs to be taken care of very, very fragilely. And it's not for a lot of people. A lot of women don't have someone to turn to, or they're too scared to bring these things up to their friends or their family members. And we aren't taking care of women that have gone through all of these hormone changes, all of these things that happen to our body when we have children. And there needs to be some way that we can decompress from it all at some point, right? Like actually take the time to, I don't know what the solution is, to be honest, but take some time to yourself. And I did have 7 days in that facility where I had a lot of time to think, and space away from my kids to think about what I really wanted for my future. And that made a whole world of difference. Yeah, it was a terrible experience, but I sat in there and I was like, this is the mom that I'm going to show up as when I get out of here. These are the things that I need to do in order to like get to back to this place that I don't want to get back to another facility or like taking all these medications anymore. So yeah, I really feel that deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like when you have that much time to sit and you're not able to really like communicate with other people, you go to a place of like deep gratitude because you're almost like forced to meditate.
Yep.
And for somebody like you who, you know, was so introspective, you were able to go into a place where you're like, oh my gosh, I almost just took myself off this earth.
Yeah.
Something brought me back. Spirit, ancestor, just fate, destiny, whatever, synchronicity, something brought you back. And so then you went into this deep place of like, wow, I'm in here, but I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to get off these meds. And I'm feeling so grateful for this place that I'm in and this opportunity that I've been given to like start over, to like, hey, reset, you know. I hope that not all mothers have to get to the point, and not just mothers, but people in general don't have to get to the point of rock bottom or going into a facility or getting to this place where they feel like they can't move forward anymore without being able to get some sort of preventative help. And so that's why I think it's so important that we talk about this, because I don't want to see any of my friends or acquaintance of friends or connections or, you know, anyone in you know, anyone in my circle or space go through something like this and not have the support that they need to continue onward. And I'm not a mother yet. So for me, hearing these stories is so helpful for me to be able to set myself up to a place where I do have support, where I can allow myself the space in that container of motherhood, where we can't just leave it all up to our husbands too, or partners. In general, husband, wife, whoever you're with, if married, not married, doesn't matter to me, but like, we can't leave it all up to one person to carry that load for us. And what I think we're missing that used to be in our society is like this really big, like, container of women that would pass down these practices from generation to generation and really like usher in the new society of mothers and usher in the new society of children. We've lost that a little bit with our
lost that fully. I mean,
lost that fully with the individualization.
Fully. Like even when I was younger, I was at my grandparents all of the time. I remember being raised by both my parents and my grandparents, and same for my husband. He was raised by his grandparents and his parents. And we've lost that in this generation for some reason. And we're not meant to do this alone, not fathers or mothers. And Brooks, my husband, he did an amazing job at holding that space for me when I came out of all of this. And all he wanted for me was to get better. And he gave me that time. And I'm forever grateful for that. But there is a lack of I don't know. I mean, even the grandparents today, like for my kids, yeah, they like to be around them, but it's not like it was when I was growing up. And I think generations before, it was even more so full families getting involved in raising children and
And it's
being,
still alive in some cultures,
yeah,
like, and I remember, seeing, one of my really close friends is Indian, and she was getting married, and she's like, but we live with my parents and we're getting married. And I was like, oh, are you guys going to get your own place? Like, are you getting it? And she's like, no, we live with my parents. Like, she's like, it's a cultural thing. And she had to explain it to me, because of course I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know that was like a cultural thing. And I was like, wow, that sounds like kind of cool. Also kind of really scary. Like, what does that look like? And to kind of like almost unlearn some things that I have been taught just by like witnessing some of my friends that are from different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, has been so important, to just put yourself into somebody else's shoes and feel a different perspective. Because we're on the topic of mothers, but like, this is the topic of like mental health in general. Like, we're not supporting our fathers, we're not supporting our men, we're not supporting, it's just an unsupported society because we've become so individualized.
Yeah.
And again, just being like outside of observer of your experience, I think it's baffling that you were put in this facility, put on all these medications, told you were going to be on them for life. It was a 7-day experience. How did you get out of that? Like, how did you get out of that experience and get on the path for healing self? Like, how did you make that flop?
Yeah,
that seems like it would be very hard.
Yeah, I knew I needed to do something pretty drastic. And for me, that was signing up for Fit for Service. I needed to dive into a community where I felt I had support, because at the time I didn't feel like I did.
Yeah, and quick backstory, we met at Fit for Service, which is a beautiful container where we learn different modalities of healing and modalities of, unveiling your consciousness to yourself. I'm probably describing that horribly, but it's
a beautiful container. You learn so much there. Not only do you meet so many amazing people, but you learn, and what I've taken away from the container the most is that you learn that everything that you need to heal yourself is within you. And that is something I never knew going into it. And I just really wanted to be around people that I could call on for support if I needed to. And I felt like that was the move for me. So I applied. I ended up going, and the very first summit, I met someone that introduced me to microdosing psilocybin. And while before I didn't have a plan as to how I was going to get off these medications, I met someone that was actually a doctor that turned into, I guess you could call her a naturopath, someone that helps people get off of antidepressants and all of these other medications by microdosing psilocybin. And now I'm at the point where I'm not taking anything. But that transition for me was huge. I was able to get off all of my medication stably, and microdosing allowed me to see my life in such a beautiful new way. And now I get to say that I'm medication free of all of the microdosing, all of the substances that were suppressing my emotions and my feelings.
And so for people that might be listening that don't know what microdosing means or what that is, can you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, she put me on a specific regimen that would allow me to get off these medications on my own without having the need for medical intervention or anything like that. But it's basically a very, very small dose of psilocybin in capsule form. I think I would take 2 a day. for a duration of a few weeks, and then I would cycle off and then take 2 a day for another duration of a few weeks. And then by that point, I was completely off all my medication. And I will never forget the interaction that I had with the person that introduced me to her. She really, really, really changed my life, because if I had not been in that container, I would never have known that that was an option for me. And I knew I eventually wanted to get to a place where I wasn't taking any substances. That was the ultimate goal, but I also knew I needed to still maintain treating my depression and anxiety and stuff. And that just allowed me to, God, I can't even explain. It's such a light dose that you don't feel things happening. You don't feel a physical sensation of any sort. I would go to work on it. I would pick my kids up. I would interact. I mean, I could drive. It's a very, very small dosage that allows you to just open your heart a little bit and be more present and see things as they are, I think, and live in the moment, I think would be how I could describe it the best. Yeah.
So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And
for those of you who don't already know, my husband and I own a coffee company called Gay Head Coffee. And of course, we drink our own coffee every day, and it's some of the most flavorful and inviting coffee, especially with the nostalgia of coming from a can rather than paper or plastic packaging. But I'm biased, so check it out for yourself. If you're interested, head over to the show notes where you will find a link to order your coffee today from gayheadcoffee.com. That's GAYHEADCOFFEE.com. Thank you all for your support. It means the world to us as a small business.
I think one thing that I wanted to touch on is that this is just one way to heal. Both of us are not doctors. You sought out a professional, right? That was saying like, hey, let's try this. Like plant medicine could help you. Let's give it a go. But in terms of healing modalities, I think that there's many different ways that you could go inside to heal on your journey. And I think that this is one way to do it. So for people that are listening that may have had a similar experience, definitely consult a professional naturopath, because it, coming off those medications, like you said, Summer, can be really intense for your body. And I'm so happy that you're medicine free now, and that this worked for you, because I think it is really powerful. Like plant medicines can be a really powerful thing, but it's not the only way. So that's what I wanted to.
Yeah, I want to add to that too, because my relationship with plant medicines has definitely transformed. I dabbled in it for a while, but I've come to a place where I have so much medical history with my postpartum and my depression and my anxiety that for me, plant medicines are not the way anymore. Like it's not something that's going to help me heal. I am glad that I had it at that point. But I realized really quickly that it wasn't something that I needed anymore. And I am able to find the answers within myself. And I find those answers by doing some of these other modalities like breathwork and meditation and doing shadow work. And I do a lot of mirror work. So these are tools that I've learned in these spiritual communities that I've taken. And now I will say plant medicines aren't for me. I don't resonate with it so much. It saved me at some point of my life. And I guess I could say that about some of the medications I was on before. They saved me at some point. But getting to a place of knowing that all the answers are within me has been such a beautiful experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's double click on some of those other tools, right? Because microdosing is just one of those tools in your tool belt, but you're also trained in awakened breathwork. So I kind of want to double click on that modality for a moment, because I know it's been really powerful for your healing journey. It's certainly been very powerful for kickstarting my healing journey as well. How did you get into breathwork? How did you get to be a facilitator? What drew you to that? What was that? Was that just part of your healing journey? What was the catalyst for bringing you to breathwork?
Yeah, so it was actually Fit for Service. It was my very first summit, and Lucas and Hella were there. They're from Awaken Breathwork, and they were facilitating a long form breathwork session at one of the events there. And I had such a intense, profound experience with them in that breathwork session, which before that, I had never done breathwork ever. So that was my very first session. And awakened breathwork, for those of you that don't know what it is, they use a form of breath called activation breath, which is an inhale and an exhale through the mouth. And it really intensifies a lot of emotions and feelings in your body. And it's very similar to somatic in the fact that you release emotions that are being stuck and held in the body, and you're able to let those go through the body. So by this particular breath style. And that was my first experience with it. It opened my eyes to a whole new world, basically. Like, before, I didn't know that I could heal myself on my own. But after that session with them, I was like, no, I got this. Like, this is a tool that I'm going to use for the rest of my life. And I was so moved by the experience and moved by what I was able to discover about myself, that I was like, I got to do this. I got to do this in my career, even if it's something that I do on the side of my other businesses or whatever. I knew I had to do it. So I immediately signed up for their training program. And
so you wanted to help other people. You were like, oh my
yes.
gosh, this has been so amazing for me, and now I want to give back. That's what I love about you as well. You're not just like trying to heal yourself along this journey. You're also thinking of everyone else who might be in a similar position to you and saying like, wow, this could be really good for somebody who might be going through a similar situation. And so you really are somebody that does like drive service into their life, not only through joy and ways to like balance motherhood, which we'll talk about here in a moment, but also through things like breath work and bringing that to your community, which I think is so important. So question for you during that first, because I think I was in that same breathwork experience with you, with Lucas. And
we were there together.
Yes,
we had not met at that point yet, but
we hadn't met yet, but we were in that, we found out that we were both in that breathwork ceremony. Yeah. So that was really cool. So what was that first breathwork experience like for you? Like, I know some people have visions, some people have like releases of anger, sadness, joy. There can be like a whole gamut of expressions that come through breathwork. Are you comfortable sharing what happened for you in that breathwork? Like, what was that moment where you said, wow, this is healing me, like on a deep core level?
I mean, I did go into a fully altered state of consciousness. As if I was on some sort of psychedelics, but there was nothing in my system. And I got tetany really bad. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's basically when your hands cramp up, or even it's not just your hands, it could be other parts of your body. I got it really, really bad in my jaw and really bad in my hands. And so it was a very painful experience for probably the first half of the breathwork session. But the support that I was given by the facilitators there they actually came up to me, and put their hands on me and helped me work through a lot of the emotions that I was going through. And it was as if I was floating above my body. Like the vibrations that were going through my body felt like I was levitating. That's how intense it was for me. And after that experience, I mean, I spoke about it there at the summit. I was like luckily enough able to speak about it, but I felt so safe and so held by the facilitators and so amazed at what my body can do on its own just by breath, that it opened up this whole door for me to exploring this. Wow, what can my body do for me? Like how can I use my body to its full potential? Because I had never experienced that before. And going into that session, I was very anxious. I get a lot of anxiety around new situations. And there was a little bit of anxiety that was happening at the beginning. And I started using my EFT and tapping all over my body. And that allowed me to calm down a little bit. But the anxiety completely released from my body. I saw visuals. I mean, I saw very intense visuals. I saw family members that had passed greeting me. I heard voices of family members. I also experienced a very intense inner knowing of what I needed to do moving forward. An inner knowing of like, wow, I can really heal myself. So yeah, that was the day that set this whole thing in motion, my whole self-healing journey path in motion.
Ooh. Thank you for sharing that. I know everyone has such different experiences through breath work. And like you said, they can be just as powerful as any plant ceremony without having to take anything from the external world and put it inside of you. You can get that feeling just from the power of your own breath. And that's really what drew me to breath work. And that wasn't my first ceremony or experience with breath work, but it was my first experience with Lucas and Hella, who are absolutely amazing. And I can't say enough about how held I felt in that space as well. So I totally resonate with that, because you're taking parts of yourself and just remembering them back together. You mentioned like the knowing, like the inner gnosis of like, okay, now I know how to move forward in this area of my life. And we mentioned earlier, I've done the somatic breathwork training. It's very similar to the awakened training, breathing in and out through the mouth, that activated type breathing. And it's also quite similar to some Wim Hof practitioner breathing. So there's a lot of breathwork that gets thrown around in the breathwork community, but a lot of it's very much to heal. So all breathwork welcome here. I'll try it all.
I love it all.
It's all good, right? And it's the first thing we do when we come into this world, and it's the last thing we do before we leave. And it's so powerful. Just to kind
of. Man, I have like literally never thought of it like that. Mind blown right now. Mind blown.
I mean, I it's one of those
things. It is the first thing we do when we come into this world, and it is the last thing we do when we exit this world. Wow.
And to me, kind of bringing it back around to that moment where you're laying there, you had just drank a bunch of wine and taken a bunch of pills, and you were almost going to take that last breath of air, and somebody said, Summer, wake up. Wake the fuck up. And so it's not synchronistic enough to me that you have been drawn to this piece, because you've touched that veil. You've like gone a little bit on either side, and somebody said, no, you need to go back and help people. And it's exactly what you've been doing. Even when you were stuck in that facility, you were like, no, I got to get the hell out of here. And I got to get off these medications because I need to go help people.
Yeah.
And then bringing it back around to finding breathwork and now becoming a facilitator of breathwork, and having that in your back pocket, even as a mother for children, where you can just say like, wow, I see you're expressing a ton of anger right now. Like, whew, okay, let it out. Like, get it out of your body. It doesn't need to live there. Where we've almost been taught, like through, I won't speak for you, but like from my childhood, it's like suppress.
Mm-hmm.
Shh. Don't. Stop crying. Stop yelling. Shh. Be quieter. Improve the silence, right? So all of that suppression baked over 36 years of being Summer, and you finally get to express, right? And how beautiful to take that into motherhood. Like, how beautiful of a gift to be able to say, wow, okay, this is healing for me, but now I get to take it into motherhood and bring joy to so many people.
Yeah. And I think that, I think there's so many people, because it was me before, that don't even realize that we store these emotions in our body. Like, it's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And I'm a true believer that the emotions that we store in our body are the causes for a lot of diseases and things that happen in our bodies throughout our life. Like,
absolutely.
And I don't think that's taught enough. I mean, I hope to implement that learning in my kids' lives so that they know that, and are able to manage that as they get older. But I was not taught that. That was the very first time I learned that I was storing these emotions in my body, and I could actually get rid of the emotions and move them out in some way that would allow my body to release them and not hold on to it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I discovered breathwork, it felt the same way. And I will say too, like, the elders in my life are so skeptical. They're like,
yeah,
right. Which is like, this should be being passed down from generation to generation. Like, everyone should know about this.
This should be taught in schools.
Should be taught in school, right? And it's one of those things where it's almost like it's so powerful that it's been hidden, like, right? Like, it's been swept under a rug, because if it gets too big, then people will have too much freedom, right? Like, the control and the powers that be. We won't get political, but it's like, why has this been suppressed from our learnings? It's so powerful. And it's because you'll take back that power of your internal system and say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this, because this is art, and this is expression, and this is creation. And when you talk about storing that trauma in your body and that those emotions in your body and not being able to express them, when we feel like dis-ease, it turns into disease. And so when you start to like,
oh, another good one.
dropping bombs. When you start to like store that in your body, like when you start storing dis-ease in your body, which is like stress, burnout, anxiety, postpartum, all the things we've been talking about, then that turns into some sort of physical manifestation. And for you, and also for me too, it was panic attacks, right? Like getting the panic feeling. That's just our body trying to like release that. And so the panic state, we had built up so much that you just go into this panic, right? Some people go in, like, it flips to some manic stage, right? Or disease in your body. And all of that can be really transformed through breath. Super, super powerful. One thing I want to touch on is this plethora of tool belt things that you have? Because I think breathwork is amazing. We talked about microdosing. We talked about, some other things that you do to kind of take yourself out of a certain state and start to heal yourself.
Yeah.
Because I could talk about breathwork all day. But what are some of those other like really, really beautiful practices that you have in your tool belt where you say like, hey, when I'm feeling this way, I go and reach for that because that's what I need in that moment?
Yeah, I've been experimenting a lot lately with mirror work. I think that's been something that has been healing so much for me as a mother because of the way that I have changed. My body has changed over the years. When I was younger, I was, this thin, petite girl, and I never thought that I would look any different, right? And then you have kids and your whole body turns into something you didn't expect. And now I look in the mirror and I don't even recognize the person that I see. And so mirror work has been extremely useful for me and being able to see myself because of the fact that my body has changed so much over the years. When I look in the mirror, it's very briefly and it's only to like put mascara on or do my makeup or like fix my hair, but I don't see myself enough. And so
can you describe mirror work for me? Like if I was a layman off the street and I knew nothing about what you're talking about, what does that practice look like?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I think it can look different for everyone. A lot of people like to use music with it and stuff. I personally have the stand-up mirror in my living room and I sit in front of it and I just look at myself. And I look at myself for 5 to 10 minutes and I can't, because I don't allow myself to see myself in this new body, it's not really a new body. It's me now. And because the glances in the mirror when I'm doing my makeup or whatever, or walking past a mirror are so brief, we've become so disconnected with who we actually are now and like what we see in ourselves. So when I do this practice, I put on some East Forest meditation type music. And I make sure no one is home and I have space to just let whatever come. And I sit in front of the mirror and I do probably 5 to 10 minutes. I just look at myself and I scan my body. I touch different parts of my body. A lot of times I'll put my hands on my womb space and do a little bit of breath work when I'm doing it. But for me, the focus is to not let my gaze turn away from myself. And
that's terrifying to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my
really
gosh.
hard to do. I think the first time I did it, I tried to just do a minute and I couldn't even do a minute without turning either facing down or facing away from my own self in the mirror.
And are you, from a thought perspective, because if I was just doing that, I can only imagine the negative self-talk that would start spinning.
Yeah.
Are you trying to allow that to roll through, or are you trying to spin it to say, I like this about myself? Like, I'm just trying to think of like, if I was sitting in front of the mirror and looking at myself, I would be so critical. I am. I don't say I would be, I am.
Yeah.
And I don't look in the mirror for that long of a period of time. I don't think I've ever done that. So this is interesting to me, as another tool. What does that reel look like? And are you trying to rewrite that reel, or are you just letting it go?
So the first couple of minutes, I will allow whatever thoughts to come. Whatever comes to my brain, whether that's negative or positive, whatever it is, I allow it to come. And usually the beginning is all the negative stuff. Because my brain goes to negative thoughts pretty frequently, and I have to counteract those thoughts by thinking of positive. So naturally, I think the majority of us probably think these negative thoughts first, and then we have to like challenge them, right? So the very first few minutes, I'll sit there and let them all come. And I think that practice is really beautiful because you're allowing it to come in, but then you move into this space of, no, I'm going to change this into a positive. And then I start talking to myself and saying all of the beautiful things that I love about myself. And so while I let the negative stuff in and I cry, and sometimes it's like this crazy emotional release of all of the things that I think about myself on a daily basis. But then it turns into this really positive, beautiful practice where I am acknowledging and seeing myself in a different way. Like when we visualize ourselves, I think we often like look like in our mind, think of images like photos from our past or something. You know what I mean? Like when I think back to my teenage years or my college years, I have these photos in my head of like what I looked like. And now that I'm doing this work, I'm not allowed to, I see a different part of myself that I'm not seeing because these images get so distracting sometimes. And I'm seeing myself as I am now, in the present moment, and appreciating the beauty that is inside of me now, whether it's a physical characteristic or a personality characteristic that I love about myself. It could go both ways, but sometimes I sit in front of the mirror, not clothed, because I have a very hard time looking at my body without clothes on. And that's something that I've been working through for a long time. And that's been the most transformational for me. And I'm noticing things about my body that I never noticed before. Like, wow, I have a freckle here. Or like, my smile goes in this way, or the way that my neckline's here, or the way that my belly looks in this position versus this position, or I could not be grateful enough for this practice.
It's almost starting to like know thyself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how do I get to know myself? Because when you talk about looking back on past pictures, and this is really resonant and relevant for me right now, because I was just helping my parents clean out their basement the other day and over this weekend. And I found a ton of old photo albums and old pictures and all this old like memorabilia from childhood. And I was just in the process of thinking through like how many different versions of myself have been presented into the universe, and how many times have I tweaked those and turned those into what I am now, and how different am I going to be 30 years from now when this version of myself no longer exists because it's dead and another one has come about. And so I started to think about the death and rebirth like throughout my entire life. And for me, it's almost like I don't even recognize that person that I see in those photos anymore, because I'm like, dang, who was that person?
Yeah.
They're integrated and they're part of who I am now, but that's not the wisdom that I'm currently carrying. And so thinking of that cycle of like all these different versions of yourself, but then being so grateful for what you've landed in the current space. And I think for women that can be really hard with the pressure for needing to look and be and act and feel a certain way. And when I was looking back at some of those photos, at like high school specifically, there was a specific look that was popular then. There was a specific hairstyle. There was a specific dress. There was a specific hairdo, shoes, jeans. All of that was very socially pressured. There was a specific makeup look. Like that was for that time. When I look back at that now, I'm like, ugh, what is that? Who is that being? Why? First of all, too much makeup. Let's be honest there. But like, second of all, outfit's not even cute. But for that time, it was like so cool, you know? But who was I trying to be in that moment? But I didn't really know myself.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I look back to like, when I look to now, I'm like, oh, am I doing that same thing? I'm like, wait, is this lesson integrated yet? And so I was really reflecting on that. So this is super relevant. And I also think it's very, very difficult for women to go through these different stages and have these social pressures that are put on them to look a certain way, talk a certain way, feel a certain way, breathe a certain way, like hold your body a certain way. How are you talking? Can I swear?
Yeah.
Can I act this way? I mean, so much suppression, right? Of just being who you are.
Yeah.
And all of that can be expressed through this modality, which I'm going to try first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you, Summer.
Set some time for yourself. Do it in silence or with like a really good, like mellow playlist, no words. You know, you don't want words to like come into the space when you're doing this.
Thank you for this pro tip. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I do have a really, really good meditative practice in the morning, but I haven't done this practice of like sitting in front of the mirror. And for me, who's somebody who's like terrified of what you're telling me right now, what I think I'm going to do, and like I'm just going to give full permission for everyone listening, like what I think I'm going to do first is to sit there with clothes on just to like love myself like that.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll slowly start to like unlayer as I go through this practice. But I love this.
Yes.
This is a practice that you can do with no facilitator in your home. It doesn't cost anything. It's just you and a little bit of time, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you don't have 5 minutes, please contact me. Like everyone has 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. And you know, when I started, I was only doing a minute long and I was fully clothed. I didn't get to the unclothed portion until I got like super into it. And
5 minutes is probably like a lofty goal. Let's say 1 minute tomorrow. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to report back how it goes.
And the goal is to not look away from yourself. And at the beginning, you can't even imagine how hard that is to do. But eventually you'll work up to this place where you're starting to recognize yourself again. And it's because you're studying yourself in the mirror. It's because now you know, this is me. This isn't just someone that's passing by this mirror like randomly throughout the day.
Yeah. You know, what's funny is that and I'm still uncomfortable with this, is that like when I had my other podcast, when I first started to listen back, I was like, oh my God, that's how I look. That's my voice. What is my hand doing? What am I saying? I say this too much. I say so's too much. I say and too much. Too much. You know, I was so critical on and then I was like, oh my gosh, no one cares. No one cares because they're all looking at themselves. And so I was like, wow, what a huge liberation. no one cares because we're all so consumed by how we look that we can barely pay attention to the conversation in front of us and the beautiful beings that we're being connected with. And
Yes.
so that's what some of these healing modalities have helped me kind of shed, is like being present.
Yeah.
Being able to just be who you are in that moment, no matter what it looks like, so that you can be fully fucking holding space for the individual that's in front of you. Because
Yeah.
that's really hard to do in this day and age. It's just really hard to do.
Yeah. And in this particular practice, that individual is you.
Holding space for yourself.
Yeah.
Woo!
It's beautiful shit, man. I can't wait for you to start.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this. So I love this mirror work stuff. I can't wait to report back on it. What else? What else is in your tool belt?
There's a lot of other stuff. I mean, I have a pretty solid meditation practice. I've developed recently a practice of connecting to God and really building that. And we could go any way with this, I guess. And I have a new beautiful practice when it comes to my kids and engaging in play, because I am the serious parent. Brooks has always been the laughing, making jokes parent, but trying to incorporate this playfulness into my interactions with them has been a fun journey as well. So there's a whole I have a whole slew of things up my sleeve.
I want to unpack that a little bit because I know your kids are a big part of your life, and being a mother is a big part of your life. And part of what I love about you is your ability to share the good, the bad, the ugly, the shadow, the light, the fun, the joy on your social media, because it's really inspirational for people to just be in like the crap hood or the complete bliss that is parenthood. And again, I'm not yet a like biological parent myself, but it just brings me so much joy to see all of the content that you've been able to create and just balancing that piece of fun. And you've confided to me in the past that you were a very serious parent at first. And now you've started to incorporate and change into this more playful version of parenthood. And I want to talk to you about the balance there, and the balance of the fun and the serious, and how you were able to kind of make that pattern interrupt shift. Was that something that happened when you came out of your facility experience, or when did that shift happen where you started to introspect and say, man, I'm like a really serious and like protective parent?
Yeah.
And maybe like too much. And like, how do I incorporate some more joy and play into being a mom so that I don't sit here wallowing in a postpartum journey for years and years to come?
Yeah, I think I've always been the type of mom that has wanted my kids to experience new places and new things. So we've always traveled. I've always wanted to create these special memories for them as far as like going on family trips and stuff. But yeah, I have always been pretty serious, and they always joke with me that I'm too serious and I don't play enough, and they would do pranks on me with my husband and, just stuff like that. I was like very tightly wound, I guess. And I think a part of me still is, but it was actually in Fit for Service. I went to Full Temple Reset, which is a program that you have kind of individualized. It's a fasting program where you really work on your health and going inward. And One of the coaches, Kyle Kingsbury, is one of the main coaches.
Shout out
there.
to Kyle, just being an
Shout out
amazing
to Kyle. Yeah.
I haven't done that program, but I
Oh,
absolutely have so much love for Kyle and his wife, Tosh. I've talked to her about like getting pregnant, miscarriages, like journeys there. And also she and I had a conversation about like pelvic floor rejuvenation.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm like, I want to know all the secrets. Like I'm like gathering all the information from all my like wisdomic mothers out there. And I'm like, what do I want? What is going on? What are the practices that I'm going to use? Of course, it's all going to go out the window when everything actually happens. And I already know that, but I'm trying to gather all this wisdom. And so shout out to Tosh, shout out to Kyle. Just such beautiful beings that are like
really amazing.
In full service. Kyle's helped me through so many like deep conversations that I've had to have with myself and with my partner and with a family and friends. So yeah, huge shout out to Kyle Kingsbury.
Yeah, I haven't had much time to speak to Tosh. I did touch base with her at the first summit this year, and that was my first time talking to her, but I do love and support them so much. And him in particular, he's been a huge influence on my parenting since I've known him and have been coached by him. And I think that's one of the reasons why I connect with him the most out of all of the coaches in Fit for Service, is because he is a parent and he kind of just gets it. And you can feel that amazing love that he has for his family, like just by the way that he talks.
Big Papa Bear energy.
Oh God, it's like so beautiful to witness and to see a man like him be so vulnerable with like so many people. It's beautiful to watch. But I actually had this conversation with him at Full Temple, and I said, how do I connect with my kids? Like, I'm just having a really hard time being in this like masculine, focus driven, working type of mentality all the time, that I'm having a really difficult time connecting with my kids. And I really don't know how to start or what to do. And
thank you for asking that question, because I think there's a lot of parents out there that are scared to say that out loud.
Yeah.
Because we have to put on this perfect version of like how we are as beings and parents.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, everything's fine, Sally. And it's like, no, not everything's fine. I don't know how to connect with my kids. Like that's a big thing. That's a big thing. That's for the rest of your life. Right?
Oh, for sure.
So thank you for asking that question and like wanting to go there.
Yeah, I think I feel like I'm an open book when it comes to shit. It's like, I am not trying to be on this planet and live this life not knowing how to grow. Like, I'm just not here for it. Like, I'm not.
That's why I'm friends with you. Yes, you're not here for that.
Yes, I'm just not going to be stuck in the same old fucking routine. And I do get stuck in it a lot because the day-to-day of motherhood is hard. The tablets and the screens and the, children in general are difficult. And I've always had a hard time connecting with them, especially since the day and age we're in with all of these devices that they want their face in constantly. But I asked him and he just said, set aside time each day to get on the ground and play with your kids. And like,
so simple, but so powerful.
So simple. Like, how is my brain not coming up with that myself as a mother, right? And when I do play with them, when I do interact with their toys or like sit on the ground and wrestle with them or whatever it is, the connection that I feel to them is unmatched from anything else. And another really fun thing that I incorporated for a little while, and we've gotten off track since school has started and stuff, was having these like family meetings, and not in a serious type of way, but like we all sit around and I go through a list of questions and we just talk about these questions. Like, what would you do in this situation if this happened? Or, I mean, it could be as simple as like, what's your favorite color and why? Or like, if you had to pick a trip to go on, like, where would you go? Or like, what do you want to learn? Like, just different things that can open these discussions up with them. And when we were doing that consistently, it was really fun because the kids would get excited before this happened, and they wanted
holding space for them, right?
Yeah.
Kids want to be listened to, and they want that deep connection. And unfortunately, a lot of kids don't get that deep connection with their parents. And so, like, I'm just so impressed by you all the time, because you're here saying, I'm not perfect. I haven't been a perfect mom. There's no one out there that is. Here's all my shit. It's on the table. So you can't come at me, because here it all is.
Yeah. And well, girl, I don't do this every day. This is not a everyday type of practice that is worked into my life. And I am so guilty of like wanting to tap out at night when it's like, you know, the kids are winding down and I want to wind down and I want to just sit there and like binge my shows or whatever it is. I do it all of the time. I'm definitely not perfect, but there are some amazing things that you can do with your children that are so small and so powerful, and brings you together within minutes. So
I love that. And I think the biggest takeaway is just getting on the ground and playing with them, getting on their level. They're in the fantasy world. They're not in the world of paying bills and going to work every day. And, you know, let them feel that freedom. Let them be in that fantasy world. Let them dream, let them express, let them create art. And one thing that you said to me in our friendship that I will never forget is that you said, I want my kids to have everything that I wasn't able to have when I was growing up. And that's so powerful, because you're breaking that like epigenetic cycle of whatever was pushed down from you from a place of suppression or fear. You know, our parents did the best they could, but you've been able to say, I don't want to incorporate that into my life anymore. I want to incorporate something different. And it doesn't matter if you do it every day, they're going to remember, because you held space for them and you listened to them. And that's really all they want. They want somebody who is giving them true attention, not false attention, where you're like, oh, yeah, but I'm on my phone, but okay, yeah, show me that video, yeah, but I'm on my phone, right? Kids know. They know when you're not paying attention to them. They know when you're busy. They'll check out, right?
They know for sure. And like, I even read a study, and I can't remember where it's from, so don't like quote me on this, but that was saying that when mothers have babies and their infants and they're breastfeeding and the mom is like sitting there on their phone or watching TV, they like instantly learn that they're second to whatever else this mother is looking at. And man, when I read that, I was like, shit, like I can't even remember all of the times that I would zone out when I was nursing, because nursing takes so much out of you, right? And like, and I was reinforcing to my babies that they came second, that I couldn't look at them in the face when we were having this connecting moment.
And P.S. anyone who has ever done that, that's okay. You've got time to reconnect the dots. And Summer's doing that right now in real time.
We have time, though. That is the beautiful thing about parenting, is you can fuck up over and over and over again. And I do it all of the time. I fuck up all the time. But there's always a way to bring them closer to you. Always. And I wish I had that growing up. My parents were very strict. And there wasn't a whole lot of like love, comforting type of conversations. It was very like, it was very serious all the time. And I wish I had more of that. And I don't do it every day. And I wish I could. I wish I had the patience to work these things in every day, but just trying is enough, you know?
And that's all you can do, right? That's all you can do, because no parent is ever going to be perfect. No parent is ever going to be able to do something every single day, especially not a parent with 3 kids. That's an impossible task. So yeah, I just applaud you for looking at yourself and saying, I don't love this piece and I want to add more balance into here, and I want to get to know my kids, like true knowing of my kids. And I want to like not be friends with them. But I want to be fun with them. I want to know how to play with them and have this deeper knowing and connection to them. So I applaud you for that. And thank you for sharing that journey online too. Thank you for sharing like
oh my gosh,
all the funny videos. Oh, I send it to my mom friends all the time. I'm like, this is for real.
I really love the mom humor. I mean, I know sometimes it's like, I battle with this in my head. Like, gosh, I'm trying to be in this like healing space. And I was just talking to someone about that last night. I'm trying to be in this like, you know, beautiful, serene, healing space. But like, I also think laughter is like the best medicine. And I'm trying to incorporate that, and, you know, whoever will stay and support me in that is meant to be connected with me, and whoever doesn't, you know, agree or feels like it aligns can just, you know, scroll past.
Ignore me over here.
Yeah.
I love it. And I'm not a mom yet. And I love your content. I'm like, yes, that sounds so real. Like I already know it's real. So today I want to share with you all the delicious cacao with a K drinking chocolate. Cacao is one of my favorite brands of ceremonial grade cacao and is a delicious addition to my morning routine. Cacao is jam-packed with delicious nutrients that work with my body to stay energized, connected, and focused. What I also love about cacao is that they are a nonprofit on a mission to protect the native heirloom strands of cacao in both Peru and Guatemala by giving back to the farmers and communities that make it available to us. If you are interested in cacao with a K, go to the show notes and you will find a link for 10% off your first order, or simply by using the discount code Jessica, all caps, at checkout. That's JESSICA, all capital letters, at checkout. I wanna dive into something that I think is really important, because we've talked about a lot of modalities for healing. This podcast is called Seikird Healing for a reason, because there's so many different ways to find that journey for yourself. There's so many different ways that people have been able to personally heal and get healing for themselves. And so I love that you're using all these modalities and more. My question is, why? Like, what is your ultimate vision for the world that you know is possible? What is the ultimate vision for Summer interacting with this world that we know, in this space of loving yourself, in this space of healing yourself? And what does that look like for you?
I think, I don't know, I think my why is probably just creating a life of fulfillment for me and my family. And if I can help others create that as well. I know that I didn't have a lot of places to turn to when I was a mom, and to be able to connect with other moms and help them through some difficult times would be an amazing thing for me to do. And I'm working on how that looks in my life and moving forward with that. Yeah, my why is just to live a life full of love and fulfillment and just joy as much as I can. I know it's not going to be like that all the time, and to know that it's possible to get to a place that is not so sad and scary all the time. Like, you can come back from it.
You can come back from it. You can learn to trust yourself. You can learn to trust your decisions, and you can learn to heal.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your journey. I know there's a lot more we could unpack, but I'm feeling like we've gone down a ton of different tunnels at this point. If anyone wants to follow your funny videos and reels, if anyone wants to double click on any of your breathwork or any of your other things that you've been touching on in this conversation, where can they find you? Where can people go and find Summer?
I am most present on Instagram. That is my favorite of all of the apps. So you can find me at summer.valentino, and that's SUMMER.VALENTINO. And all of my links are on there, and my social channels, so you can find me there. And yeah, I'm so happy to have had this conversation with you and to be invited on your podcast. And I just, thank you so much, girl.
Thank you so much. And I'm just so elated that you've like woven into my life, and nothing is coincidence. And this friendship is going to continue to blossom. And I really do feel that on a cellular level. You've been such a beauty and a presence. Whenever I see you in person, I'm like, oh my God, my anxiety just completely drops because you.
Oh, I love you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's like, it's true. Like when I see your face, I'm like, okay, I can relax now. Like I can just like be in the space, because I get amped up before I get stressed, right? I get anxiety. And we've talked about like panic a little bit. Like I used to have panic attacks. And so for me, like I get very amped before like social anxiety almost. I don't want to label it, but it feels like that. And when I see your face and you're smiling and you're so happy and you just bring a lot of joy into a container. And so I just want to say thank you, because it's brought me a lot of peace and a lot of being able to just be like, oh, okay, I can breathe now. Summer's here. And I know that you're going to hold down a container and hold a space and be completely raw and vulnerable and real and fucking authentic. And you're not going to leave any stone unturned, because you're so curious and you're so willing to do deeper work. And so I appreciate that, because it's inspiring. And it's inspired me from afar. And it's drawn me to you. So thank you for being a friend. Thank you for long phone conversations. Thank you for being on the podcast. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you for seeing me, girl. I mean, it's like the best thing to be seen for who you are. And so, thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing all your journey. Everyone go follow Summer. She's got hilarious videos. If you're a mom, if you're not a mom, if you're a father, you're going to laugh. She's amazing. And she's weaving really, really great things in the world. And we appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much for listening to the Seikird Healing Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.
I'm sorry. Please please forgive me.